Hi, I'm Tim and welcome to Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on. Today we are looking at the icon of the motorsports chronograph world. This is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 116505. This is the official winner's gift at the annual 24 Hours of Daytona sports car race. Well, let me correct myself. The stainless steel Daytona is the winner's gift at the 24-hour race. What you're looking at is actually the 40mm matching bracelet and case Ever Rose 18-karat red gold Daytona, built of Rolex's own proprietary Ever Rose rose gold alloy. Now, this watch reeks of motorsports because if I were to just cite one notion that comes to mind, one feeling that this watch exudes, it is raw power. The power of that gold, the combination of the red gold and the black dial, the shocks of red on the script Daytona right above the 60 seconds, constant seconds register at 6 o'clock. This watch is the definition of visual impact, but it's also an exemplar of finesse. Now, normally, colored gold is kind of a double-edged sword. Aesthetically, it's something that can have a tremendous effect, but can also overwhelm. It's kind of like a race car. There's a lot of power there if you use it well, and Rolex does. The key here is the finesse, and the finesse starts with the detailing of the dial. Once again, the iPhone constrains me a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about how the contrast between the black of the base lacquered dial and those gorgeous, highly detailed graphics, Rolex coronet, subdials, 18-karat hands, and applied indexes define this as a finesse watch just as much as a power piece. Then I want to move on to the contrasting finish of the case and the bracelet, which uses masterful articulation of brushed and polished surfaces to give this watch definition that would otherwise be lacking if it were just undifferentiated colored gold. Now let's start with the dial. The defining feature of the dial is just that black luster. This is a gloss dial, and all of the metallic elements are kind of arranged in juxtaposition to that. You have the concentric circles, the guilloche of the subdials, each one featuring a rayhot around finely detailed and finely laid indexes and numerals. Each one features both indexes and numerals, and that delicate detailing breaks up the mass of black between the guillocheed centers and the polished rehot edges. And there is a contrast there because the guilloche is metallic and matte, but because of the graining, it has a tremendous play in the light. You can see those little light propellers, as I like to call them, moving across the surface of each one as I articulate this one in the light of the light box here, but you can also see the gleam of those chapter rings. And the graphics, the applied 5-point coronet, and the second plane that's opened up by these applied rose gold indexes and these gorgeous rose gold diamond polished baton hands, it adds depth. Because the dial already looks wet and 3 feet deep, kind of like the way I like to relate it, the paint on a good hot rod, this watch has tremendous, almost 3D effect. You don't look at this dial so much as you look into it. You kind of pour yourself into the dial and it just engrosses. It's that intriguing. This has a radiance to it, but it also has a tremendous charisma that adds to that word again. It just recaps the power of this watch. Now, the tachometer scale is a little bit unique because the gold Rolexes have a monopoly on these triangular indexes you see right here next to the calibrations. So there's that little wink and a nod to the fact that you are wearing a rose gold Rolex. Like I said, the world can see that this is red gold, but it's the owner, it's the connoisseur that notices things like these little triangular pips underneath each one of the numerals of the tachometer. I talked a little bit about the articulation of the case through the use of contrasting finish, and nowhere is that more in evidence than right here at the lugs, where the Oyster bracelet joins with the conforming end link of its bracelet. Now it's tight to the case, as you can see. It removes that unsightly seam, and it contributes to that integrated Rolex case-into-bracelet look. Now the Daytona has a particularly fluid lug, unlike the so-called super cases of the new GMTs, the Submariners, the Sea Dwellers. The Daytona maintains a finer lug shape, and it's really nicely matched to the dress watch function of a red gold, of a yellow gold Daytona. And the polish matches that notion perfectly. It supports the role of this watch as an elegant motorsports companion. It may be a name evocative of northern Florida in February, but let's face it, a red gold Daytona That one speaks with a French accent and a bit of a Monaco Grand Prix sensibility. This is upscale, even by Rolex Daytona standards. And the lugs and the flow into the bracelet really speak to that. Tapered as always, there's also this use of a polished shoulder. The upper links on the outside are brushed, and then the inner links, the center links, are broad and beautifully polished. So there's that contrast. Again, to break up the mass of the red gold, Rolex doesn't have to turn to coloration or glitter. There's no PVD. There's no ceramic here. It's just a beautifully applied alternating finish. And that leads us into another point. This is a beautifully built piece, not just beautifully finished. All modern Rolex bracelets are milled. They have solid links. They have solid end links. And the clasps really do feel like tank doors or tank hatches. They close with a beautiful thunk. When you close a modern Rolex clasp, you get that reassuring snick. Stays shut, looks great. The function is now living up to the legend. There was a time when these clasps were stamped, and to be honest, they could be a little bit disappointing from a functional and feel standpoint. No longer. And Rolex has you covered with tool-free adjustment up to 5 millimeters thanks to the Easy Link system, which is built in. You can adjust finely based on whether your wrist is expanding or contracting during periods of activity, hot weather, cold weather, and Rolex has that built in. For additional adjustability, there are 3 separate positions where you can anchor the bracelet, so without having to remove links, you've got the Easy Link, and then with the help of a jeweler, beyond the Easy Link, you have 3 separate adjustability positions, just so you can keep your entire red gold assembly together and leave more adjustability for later on should you want to make additional adjustments without having to hunt or store links. Again, closes and opens beautifully, and you can hear that snick. That's the sound of quality. So, if you're one to seek the roar of the high banks every January, if you're one to venture to Monaco, if you're looking for the ultimate motorsports chronograph, but you want something that's refined, upscale, and more than a little bit unique, this red gold, Ever Rose, reference 116505 Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, can be seen on Watch You Want with all boxes, papers, and documents of provenance. This is one of the finest 6-digit reference Daytonas I've seen. It has incredible presence, and to cite that word again, incredible power. If you're looking for power overwhelming, if you're a motorsports junkie, if you love Rolex, you owe it to yourself to check out this Cosmograph Daytona 116505 on Watch You Want.